Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Women's History Month. So, February, March, and April are all like months that like are national things. So, it's Black History Month. Now it's Women's History Month. Women's History Month. And then April is National Poetry Month. May, as far as I know, nothing is going on. I have to check. But then June is Black Music Month. So it's a lot of months going on. So I decided this month I was gonna look at, because I feel like I review a lot of movies but not a lot of TV shows. So I'm gonna watch TV shows and I want to review more books, which let's lead right into it. I watched the Hulu series Kindred, which is based on the book Kindred by Octavia Butler. I feel like that's not her full name. Oh, Octavia E. Butler. Sorry. So this is going to be a little backwards. I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all in the beginning of the video. I'm going to review the series. I'm going to tell you like everything. But I'm going to read the book and review it next week. So it's a little backwards. Usually you should read the book first and then watch the movie or the series or whatever it is. Or the play or, that kind of thing. But sometimes I do things backwards. The only time I've ever read a book before a movie was when I went to see Precious. And that was it. I have the book Push. There's a sequel, but I haven't read it. But I would like to. But yeah, I'm going to read the book Kindred next week. So this is going to be with the knowledge, the very limited knowledge I have about the book. Because, I don't want to spoil too much for myself. You know what I mean? But I do have the basics, like some basic differences, okay? And so Kindred, the TV show, is science fiction. So I'm going to describe the book, even though I'm going to describe it again next week. But the book synopsis is a young Black woman, an aspiring writer, has uprooted her life of familial obligation and relocated to Los Angeles. Before she can settle into her new home, she finds herself being violently pulled back and forth in time. It's a time travel science fiction kind of book. And then the series synopsis is Dana has just moved to Los Angeles to establish a life closer to her only remaining family, her aunt Denise, when she's pulled back in time to the 19th century in the antebellum South. And the show was developed by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, and of course it's based on the book by Octavia E. Butler, which I just described. So that's the basic premise. However, I guess I'm going to get into it in some of my pros and cons. I'm trying not to spoil too much for y'all, but give you enough. So yeah, basically, in the TV series, Dana's a 26-year-old Black woman who, randomly she moves from New York. In the series, she moves from New York. I'm not sure where she moves from in the book, but she lived in Brooklyn, New York. Her grandmother passed away. I guess the grandma had a lot of issues, health-wise, I guess. And I guess relationship-wise, her and the aunt were on good terms. So that's kind of something that happens in the, they talk about in the, in the show. My brain's not working now. So then Dana, once the grandmother passes, she's left this big house and she's the only one in New York. So she decides, I'm going to surprise my aunt and uncle and move to Los Angeles to, be with them. I'm going to sell the house. So that's kind of a conflict because, it's the grandmother's house or the aunt's mother's house. So, it's kind of a conflict. And of course, being New York, I think she probably got a lot of money for it, So it's a lot of conflict. And then I will say, because I know it makes sense. So this, I don't think it's too spoilerish. Is it too spoilerish to share this? It's a tiny spoiler. But the mom, Dana's mom, whose name is Olivia, was thought to be dead because there was an accident in which, they had a car accident, but it was a single car accident. Like somehow it's assumed that they veered off, like maybe something, they were trying to swerve something and they fell in, they drove into the lake, and then the husband passed away, and they assumed the mom passed away. But the problem is, which I'm trying to figure out how this makes sense. Maybe I should have put that in the cons, but they don't find her body. They just assume like she's somewhere in the lake. But I don't know if they didn't even look or what. But do I have to restart my computer? Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna wait. Hopefully it doesn't restart without me doing it. So I'm gonna do this video and then do the update. But for some reason, there's no body. I'm trying to figure out how you have the funeral though. Like, do you go to what did they do? That's I did not put that in my cons, but clearly that's a little bit of a plot hole that is weird. Okay, but now that's a little bit of the background. But basically they assume she's dead, right? Okay. So the cast is Mallory Johnson as Dana James, he's the main character. Mackay Stock as Kevin Franklin, who's like her boyfriend. Like they're kind of just starting to date basically, which I do talk about in my cons, but we'll get to that. So when they go back in time, they go to the Whalen farm. So Ryan Canton is Thomas Whalen, who's the dad, the husband, the overseer of the slaves. He's in charge basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Gail Rankin as Margaret Whalen, who's the mom figure. She's kind of like a very hypochondriac, but I also kind of feel in like kind of helicopterish mom. But also like learning some things throughout the series, I can understand why. I don't want to spoil it, but I can understand why, because this David Alexander Kaplan as Rufus Whalen. So she only has one child, who's Rufus, and he's kind of frail. He's like always hurting himself or getting into some kind of trouble. He's drinking till he gets sick. He broke his leg at one point. It's like a lot going on. I hope that's not too much spoilers, but yeah, basically the kid got a lot going on. So I kind of understand why she's kind of a helicopter mom. You know what I mean? The kid over there doing whatever he wants. So Austin Smith is Luke. He's like I don't really know what the position would be on a slave. I guess he's like a kind of like he's a slave, but he's like a lookout. He's kind of like, he's supposed to look out on the grounds, like make sure nobody runs away, make sure that everything's in order. That's what he's supposed to do. Okay, Sophia Brown as Sarah. Oh, Sarah is the cook. She's like the main cook in charge. It seems like she likes that role, or I guess it like affords her not to be like abused or anything, which I don't know if they don't really say whether she's been abused or not, but it seems like she likes this position on the plantation. Okay, Shiria, I hope I said her name right. Shiria Irving as Olivia, who is Dana's mom, which, okay, that's going to be a major spoiler, but sorry, spoiler alert, her mom is in the past. Olivia's in the past. Okay, Ellis Davis as Ellie. Is it Aisa Davis as Denise? And I'm trying to remember. Oh, Denise is the aunt. See, y'all? I just finished watching this series, and I'm already forgetting people. But I will say it was pretty memorable. I will say it was intense, but I'm going to get to that in my overview. So let's get into the pros and the cons of the series. Also, if you want to watch this series, it is on HBO Max. It came out last year, December 13th of 2022. Unfortunately, I'm just going to go ahead and say it was canceled. So they're trying to shop around. I would like to see the rest of the story finish up at least, because it did leave on like a big cliffhanger, which I guess they did it because they thought it was going to get renewed, but like when I researched it, the next month it got canceled. So You know, didn't really work out. But it would be nice if it was on Hulu. But Hulu canceled it because I have the subscription for Hulu. But um, there's so many subscription sites. So I'm sure I could find somebody who has something else or whatever else, wherever it goes. But hopefully I'll be able to watch it at some point, or at least DVR it on my TV or something. Cause yeah, it left on a huge cliffhanger. So that would suck, if it didn't find any other home. But let me get into the pros. So Mallory Johnson, who is Dana, she's the main character. Her acting and basically all the acting in general, I think Mallory did a fantastic job. I felt like she was really going through everything that her character was going through. Like it was really her, like it was really believable. Like, I would be freaked out too if this happened to me. Like, which I don't think it's the house because they like kind of talked about that. But I'm kind of wondering why she didn't go through this in Brooklyn. But hey, I'm not a writer for TV, but that is a little tiny, that's another plot hole. But anyway, and I think all the characters were believable for the different roles throughout both time periods. Like, Kevin kind of starting to get to know her and dating her and stuff. And it's kind of like, he's kind of hesitant going back with her. He's like, I'm not going to go back. Because one time she wasn't trying, of course, she has no real control over when she goes back. So one time he was holding her arm, trying to take her out of the house. And then they got put back in the past. So it's, it is intense. I mean, for him, it's not as bad because he's a white man. So, but, I mean, he could still get hurt or killed in the past and then just not come back. So, they are still high stakes, basically. But, everybody understood the assignment and they got high scores, LOL. But yeah, everybody understood the assignment. I'm going to say, I hated the Wayland parents because the mom was like, she's a helicopter mom. I get that. But then she's also mean to the slaves. And then the husband can't get over his his first wife passed away, so he can't really get over her. And then he's mean to both the mom and the kid. So both parents are not the best. But you know what? I guess that's what makes it believable is that I can't stand them. So, but Rufus is a kid, and sometimes he has good mood, sometimes he's in a bad mood. It is what it is. He's a kid. But yeah, everybody understood the assignment. Speaking of that, I'm gonna skip over my next point. I'm gonna come back to it hopefully. But I'm gonna talk about the annoying neighbors that Dana has in LA. These people were accurately portrayed so much. I hated them. They were always like, so that they had like a next door kind of app or something, and they would like be describing Kevin as like suspicious and like all these different things. And they'd be knocking on the door and asking them stuff and like basically being invasive. And it was like they were really doing their job because I really hated them. Like the wife was a Karen, or I don't think they were married yet, but whatever. I'm gonna call her the wife. The wife was a Karen and the husband was a Ken or whatever the equivalent of a male Karen is. But they were really in their roles. Like, I was really annoyed. I was like, please leave these people alone. Like, why y'all keep bothering these people? And then, I kind of felt, I didn't feel like they were, at first I felt like it was racially motivated. I'm not gonna lie. But once they were suspicious of Kevin, I was like, okay, maybe it's not racially motivated. Maybe they think he's abusive or something. But, of course, you can't just be telling random people I went back in time. Like, they're gonna think you're insane. You know what I mean? They're gonna call the hospital to come and take you into the ward. You know what I mean? So you can't just explain that to everybody. So it's kind of they just nosy unknown neighbors. But they did a great job because I was even when Kevin went off. This is kind of a spoiler. Kevin went off on the wife and the husband was not happy. But it's like, if you keep bothering people all the time, of course they're going to go off on you. And then they had a little fight with the husband and Kevin. But y'all, it was a lot going on. But it was eventually going to happen, like that things were going to boil over. But yeah, they did. I wanted them to disappear in the past, lol. That's how good a job they did of annoying me. Now I'm going to get back to my second point that was a pro, was the tone. Like, of course, considering slavery is a big part, yeah, no, it's going to be a very dreadful and anguishing tone. But they really nailed that down. Like, I was like, every time she went in the past, I was like, no. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want that for her. You know what I mean? And of course, it's very tense in the past timeline, and very much like was felt by every character. I will say, if you don't like a darker toned show, this might not be for you, because it's very dark. Even, after she comes back from the past, it's like crazy, because you have went to a past where basically, as a black woman or as a black person, you're property. You're not treated very well. You're physically, verbally, sexually, whatever else kind of abused. So, and you could potentially die in real life in that time period. And that's it. You don't come back. You're just dead. So, very intense. Okay. My fourth point is the settings. All the settings look great and realistic, whether they were like in the past or the present. And everything looked good. And each place had a different like atmosphere and tone, so it went great with each part of the story. So obviously, if you go to the plantation, very dark, sad, anguishing. If you go to Olivia's cabin, it's kind of like still, it's like more secretive, because like Olivia's a free woman, so it's kind of like you're like close, like you're at freedom, but then you're also not at freedom. So it's like kind of like a dichotomy. Like she's like somewhere in the forest, further away from the plantation, and it's like this dichotomy. Like you're trying to lay low, you're trying to be free, but then also there are people who are not free who are coming to see you. So it's kind of like that. And then also going into town. They have an episode where they go into town. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but Kevin, he's from a different time period. These things are not happening, obviously. So the TV show set in 2016. It's not happening. These kind of things are not happening where he is. So he's not used to it. So some things happen, and he's really, of course, not trying to participate. He's disgusted, right? Rightfully so. And then the story. That's my last pro. The story was so captivating, and there were a lot of twists and unexpected things. And I thought the story was going one way, then boom, it would switch up. It definitely kept you on your toes, excited to see what would happen next. Even though I also kind of dreaded what happened next, because I'm like, I hope nothing too bad happens. I will say in the last episode, something bad does happen to Dana. I'm not going to elaborate, but I will say it's not sexual violence. So I will say there is some sexual violence. Like, they don't show it, but you can kind of tell in some scenes. And then other scenes that's like implied. So just a warning if that's not something you are trying to see or hear about. Because some of them are mentioned but not shown. And then one scene is kind of like it's starting to happen. They show some things, but then you hear like crying and like distress. So I will say that. So just a fair warning if you watch this series. Let's get into my cons now. Dana's decisions. Dana, I guess she's a strong, independent woman, but not in the 1800s. Like, well, you're not in 2016 anymore. You can't just be, in the 1800s, she can't be an independent woman, especially in the South. So she was not being careful of like the time she was in. She was just doing stuff that, at that time period is not okay and could get you hurt. She's teaching people to read. She's reading, which, back then they didn't want slaves to read, because if you can read, you can figure out, hey, I could read a map. I can figure out how to get out of here. I can read something against slavery and figure out that this is not humane. I need to get out. Reading, a lot of reading is a power, especially back then. And even now, like, in Florida, they're banning all these books. It's a lot going on in Florida. But, that was like a big no-no. And, she was not careful at all. Also, Kevin was like, we need to get out as soon as possible. And she was just lollygagging around. Even though she does feel like she needs to help the people there, I feel like, for me, I'm like, let me get out of here as soon as possible. Yeah, let's do that. And then she had put Kevin in an awkward situation because there was this little snotty-nosed girl that comes to the house. It's kind of a spoiler. She kicks something over and she tells Dana to come pick it up. But when Dana doesn't, she's like, oh, let me smack you, wench. And then Dana's like, well, can I slap you back? Of course. The little girl runs crying to her dad. And then, they try to make Kevin slap her, and Kevin's like, oh, I can't do that. And they're like, why? And then, they make up something as an excuse. I'm not going to say what it is. But, yeah, that's kind of an awkward situation he got stuck in. And she was not following what was expected of her then, and she was put in bad positions because of it. It's like, you're not a free woman. Although sometimes I think, like, I was thinking about this, like, what if he had said, this is my friend, or this is, but I guess it would have been bad, because if Kevin didn't say that this is my slave, I guess in theory, she could have gotten enslaved by somebody else. So, I mean, could have been bad. So, I mean, I guess it was a good idea, because then what is the alternative if you say, this is my partner or this is my girlfriend? Like, it's definitely not allowed, and then what if they go to jail, or, I guess the alternative could have been worse, you know what I mean? And another thing that, this is going to be a spoiler, that irked me is that, her aunt doesn't believe her, obviously. She's like, your mom was mentally unstable, and now you're mentally unstable. So she basically, like, her mom talked about the same thing. So the aunt thinks that, she's just having a mental breakdown, basically. But she had her mom's ring. She could have showed her aunt, like, look, I have my mom's ring. I really went back in time, because I have this. Because they didn't find nobody. So she could have proved that she did, instead of her aunt trying to commit her. But she didn't keep the ring. Kevin had the ring, and then she gave the ring back, because they had to follow me out. Keep the ring so you can prove it. That just irked me, y'all. Okay. So another con was, so in the book, so Dana and Kevin's relationship that. So in the book, they were married, and I feel like the stakes would have been better, because at least if I'm married, of course I'm going to try to keep my husband with me. You know what I mean? And I feel like it would have made more sense, because it's like, if we just started dating, I don't know if I would be trying to go back in time with you. You know what I mean? Even though I do kind of feel like that maybe helped her not be as, I mean, it did give her some kind of protection, I think, though. But like, they do care for each other, I feel like. But, if we just started dating, I don't think I want to go back in time with you. That sounds like a very bad date, LOL. And I also do feel like the story, oh, and I guess it would have been better. I'm thinking this note is like for just them two. I kind of wish it was just them two going back and forth. And so they're trying to figure it out without all of the extras. So I'm gonna put the annoying neighbors and Dana's family together, even though I made them two separate points. But I don't really feel like I feel like they did a great acting job. Of course, the annoying neighbors did so great. I hated them. But I didn't really feel like they added anything to the plot, really, in my opinion. And then they kind of derailed the story for me. Like, I really wish it was cut out, because that didn't really add anything to me. Like, they didn't help the plot, really. Because, Dana's trying to figure out why she's going back in town. That's the main plot. And, and with the, and trying to bring her mom back as well. And, like, that. I feel like that's the main plot to me. So having the neighbors and then also having her family. Her family was kind of annoying too. They just like were all into her business. I didn't think they were really there for the plot. But I guess they were there so somebody would believe her, which the aunt didn't even believe her at first, honestly. Until something happens. But I don't want to spoil what happens. But basically, the aunt is a nurse, and so Dana goes to the hospital where she works. The aunt and is trying to explain everything to her. Of course, the aunt thinks like, oh my gosh, we gotta commit her, right? Like anybody would think. So I don't know why she did that, but hey, if she kept the ring, she could have showed her. I'm just gonna keep talking about that. But anyway, yeah, I don't really think that they really need to be there. I feel like they could have cut them out. Also, Kevin's sister, I didn't really feel like she needed to be a part of the plot either. Like, I don't know, I feel like it would have tightened up stuff. Because I felt like all those kind of scenes were kind of unnecessary. You know what I mean? Just to me. Okay, my last con is the pacing. It was a little slow, but it was also because back and forth. So basically, if you go a week in the past, for example, it's only like an hour in real time. So, it's kind of like things are happening in the present, but in the past, it's like a long time, So it's kind of, I feel like the pacing was like kind of drawn out, and so a lot of the mysteries of the story were drawn out, and some stuff could have been cut out for me. And I think if the pacing were better, the story could have been tighter, and more things could have been discovered earlier. I feel like, even though the aunt does reveal something kind of, I don't know if it's major, but it's like it helps Dana trying to solve the mystery basically. So I guess the aunt being there is good because she finds something and she's like, oh, look, check this thing. And, we can figure this out, basically. But other than that, I mean, I feel like Dana could have figured that out. Could have possibly unpacked her bags and found it and been like, I feel like there could have been another way for that to be revealed. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my favorite episode and my least favorite episode. My favorite episode is Alice, mainly because everything is finally pieced together, which is the last episode, so that's episode 8. However, it does leave on a big cliffhanger, like I said earlier. My least favorite episode is episode 6, Celeste, mainly because Dana, this is the whole thing about the ring. I've already talked about it, but that's why I don't like that episode very much, because it's like, you have it. You could just be like, look, this is what I have from my mom, and she doesn't do it. She doesn't even have it with her. Kevin has it with him. Ugh, that just made me so upset. But my overall opinion, the series is pretty dark and intense given the subject matter, and me also binging it in 4 days, that's kind of intense. But I would say it's very edge of your seat thrilling. I would also say for me, I'm not a long episode series type of person, but I would say it makes sense for the story. So like some episodes are like 36 minutes, 38 minutes, some are 40 minutes, some are an hour, some are 50 minutes, like that. But it did make sense. I was constantly theorizing what would happen next. I did spoil myself. I did spoil one thing for myself, but I don't know, I kind of figured it would happen, but it was okay. I didn't spoil anything else for myself, so I didn't know anything else. So that was, I would just go in knowing basically the book premise, although it's it differs from the book, but I wouldn't read anything really. I wouldn't look at any reviews. I would just go in cold turkey pretty much, even though it is intense. So I watched it in 4 days, maybe take like a full 7 days. That's what I would tell y'all. And things would happen. I'd be like, how can this be fixed? You know what I mean? Especially in the past. And I hope, like I said, I hope they can find a place where they can come out with at least another season, and hopefully not end that season on a cliffhanger. Just wrap it up, just in case they don't get renewed again. Which I am salty about it being canceled, but I can't do anything about that. LOL. So I will give it a 7 out of 10. Despite the flaws and dark subject matter, I did have a good time watching it. of course, with a heavy heart, of course. So next month is poetry month, so I'm gonna try to not write any poetry this month because I'm gonna be writing a bunch next month. So I wrote a letter. So I wrote a letter from Olivia to Dana. It's called Dear Dana. Dear Dana, I wish I could still be with you and see how you've grown. I wish I could understand what happened to me. I feel too stuck in this world in this time period. I need to find a way back, but I also gotta take care of Alice because she doesn't deserve to be alone in this world. She deserves to be protected and treated like a human being she is. But I do miss you and your daddy. I wish I could have saved him. They never found my body after the accident, and I'd rather they had than for me to be stuck back here. I feel torn, like I want to help my people where I am, but I also long for you to be in my life again. My only daughter, and now I'm raising Hagar's only daughter. That's another slave that they met. Stuck between two people that need me, two people that want me, but I feel too involved now, but I also long for you now. I hope you understand. I had no idea what would happen to me. You make me proud, and I wish I could have been there for you all this time. Love, a mom who wished she could have been with you. So yeah, that kind of, I don't know if that spoiled something, but the mom does feel like after being in the world so long, that time period, she does feel obligated, to staying. At first she wanted to go, but she's taking care of a little child, so which I'm not going to spoil anything about that. But, I think you guys should check out the series. I really enjoyed it. I think it is, like I said, watch it a full week. Don't overwhelm yourselves because it can be intense. But I really hope they find a new home for it, and hopefully it'll be on a platform I actually have a subscription to. But we'll see. And then, like I said, next week I'm going to read the book after I already, watched the series. But yeah, they said the series is based on like the beginning of the book, so I guess I would compare, although I know there are like obvious changes. Like I said, the relationship status with Kevin, and I think the extra family members are not in the book, but we'll find out next week. So yeah, happy Women's History Month. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all next week.